Well, hello guys, it's Chris. From legendary monsters to famous socialites to entire towns, join me as I reveal 5 mysterious disappearances that no one can explain. Number 5. Maura Murray. In 2004, a 21-year-old woman named Maura Murray asked for some time off work to visit family following the death of a relative. On her way through New Hampshire, Maura drove her car into a snowbank and became stranded. When a truck driver saw her and offered to call the police for assistance, she politely declined, noting that AAA was on their way. But the truck driver decided to call the police anyway. When the police arrived, Maura had vanished, but her car was still in the snowbank. And despite snow being everywhere, there were no footprints to suggest where she had gone. What's most shocking, though, is that there were no records of anything happening to Maura's family like she had told her employer. It's all lies. Even stranger, before she left for her trip, she'd been in a different car accident and had experienced a mental breakdown at work. Police even theorized that the day she crashed into the snowbank, she was on her way to a remote place to do the unthinkable. The day after Maura's disappearance, her boyfriend received a voicemail containing no words, just the sounds of Maura's pained sobbing. Maura's father has never given up searching for her, and in February of this year, the media revealed promising news. After Maura's disappearance, a homeowner nearby had refused to allow their property to be searched. However, a new owner has granted permission, and cadaver dogs have indicated that there may be human remains underneath the basement floor. While the discovery of Maura's body would solidify the long-held suspicion that she met a tragic end, it would also provide her loved ones with some much-needed closure, and perhaps some answers regarding what happened to her. Number 4. Virginia Carpenter. On June 21, 1948, a 21-year-old woman named Virginia Carpenter boarded a train that was en route from Texarkana to Denton. Her ultimate destination was the Texas State College for Women, and during the train ride, she met a female teacher who was heading in the same direction, so they shared a cab there from the Denton train station. As they arrived, Virginia realized that one of her bags was missing, so she went back to the train station alone. Upon arriving at the station, the bag she was looking for was not there, and the train attendants noted that if found, it would be dropped off at the dorm in the morning. Virginia took the cab back to her new dorm. As they pulled in, there was a yellow convertible with 2 men in the front seats just outside. Virginia seemed to know them, and after exiting the cab, she was never seen again. Well, maybe not. After she went missing, there was a series of reported sightings of Virginia, and people began wondering if her disappearance was a hoax. Some sightings placed her with the 2 men with the convertible. Other reports claimed that she was hitchhiking and said she ran away from something, but none of these sightings were ever proven. Adding to the mystery, 3 of Virginia's friends were later killed by a serial killer who was never caught. However, police claim that the murders are not connected to Virginia's disappearance. Under Texas civil law, she was declared dead on June 9, 1955, and has been considered so ever since, at least legally. Number 3. Dorothy Arnold. In 1910, there was a young heiress and socialite named Dorothy Arnold living in New York. Despite her privileged existence, Dorothy dreamed of becoming a writer. That year, she submitted 2 of her own works to a publication and was rejected. At a time when women couldn't even vote and were considered second-class citizens, it was typical for their career attempts to fail. Dorothy's friends and family were all too happy to make fun of her for her broken dreams. On December 12th, Dorothy told her mother that she was going shopping for a dress for her sister's upcoming ball. During the outing, she purchased chocolate and a book and went for a walk in Central Park. This was the last time she was seen. Given her status as an heiress, a kidnapping was suspected at first, but no ransom demands were ever made. Suspiciously, Dorothy's family did not report her disappearance for 6 weeks and even told people who expressed concern that she was fine. When they finally came clean that Dorothy was missing, they didn't go to the police but to their lawyer. The police became involved after all possible evidence had been contaminated, complicating the search. Dorothy did have a secret life. She had been engaged to a man named Junior, and the two planned to elope to Europe. After learning about this, the police expanded their search efforts to certain parts of Europe, but they failed to turn up any evidence of her whereabouts. Number 2. Roanoke. While all unsolved disappearances are tragic, it's downright disturbing when an entire settlement vanishes without a trace. While history fondly remembers the settlements of Jamestown and Yorktown, England had another colony that came before them. Roanoke, established in 1587 in modern-day Virginia. This is believed to be the country's first true attempt to settle on land that would eventually become the United States. During the planning of Roanoke, it was decided that the settlement would be supplied annually by ship. But not long after Roanoke was successfully built with 115 people of various talents, England went to war with Spain, and no supply ships were sent to Roanoke for 3 years. In 1590, a ship finally arrived with new supplies, and when the ship's crew came upon the settlement, no one was there, nor was there any trace of the colony itself. The only thing they found were the skeleton of a single person, the word Crow carved into a tree, and the word Croatoan etched into one of the settlement's gates. Centuries later, people are still trying to figure out what happened to the colony. Did the people delivering the supplies simply forget where Roanoke was? It's doubtful. The supply ship was captained by a man named John White, one of Roanoke's original founders who would return to England to retrieve supplies in 1587. He also had family in Roanoke, and it's unlikely that he simply forgot where it was. So what happened to the colony? The biggest and most pervasive theory comes from Croatoan. This word is the name of an island just south of where the colony was formed, and it was also the name of a Native American tribe that lived on the island. Many people think the Croatoan people actually wiped out Roanoke, but there's a problem with that theory. If there was a massive battle, why was there only one skeleton found? It's unlikely that the Croatoan people would have taken the bodies. If anything, they would have left them there as a warning for those who were considering invading their land. Furthermore, if there was a battle in the settlement, there would have been more damage and some clue as to what had happened to it. But there was essentially nothing when White returned. Another theory is that the people were so desperate for supplies that they decided to go to the island of Croatoan and try to live there, either as part of the tribe or just to make a new home for themselves. But if that was true, why did they abandon the colony to the point where they barely left a trace? Even in desperation, it seems unlikely that they would have completely broken it down. And even if so, what's the meaning of the cryptic one-word message, Croatoan? There is one more theory, which stands to explain everything in a different light. Upon the supply ship returning, John White might not have seen nothing. He might have witnessed a massacre. This theory posits that the crew made up the story about the empty colony to cover up the massacre, thus not dampening the hopes of colonizing the New World. 17 years later, Jamestown was born, and to this day, historians remain baffled about the fate of Roanoke. Number 1. Jimmy Hoffa. When it comes to disappearances, there are a few that stand out above the rest, and one of them is the legendary and infamous Jimmy Hoffa. Jimmy Hoffa was many things, including part of the mob and the leader of a union group called Teamsters. On the latter front, you could say he was born for the role, as he was an activist from the early years of his life, a natural-born leader, if you will. By 1952, Hoffa was vice president of the Teamsters, and from 1958 to 1971, he was the union's president, serving some 2.3 million members during his tenure. Despite his admirable work ethic, Hoffa was hardly an innocent man. He was involved with the New York mob and was even indicted twice on various charges, including jury tampering, bribes, and fraud. And that's just to name a few. He was eventually given a prison sentence of 13 years, but he got out of it by resigning as the Teamsters president via a pardon deal with U.S. President Richard Nixon. In 1975, on a seemingly typical evening, Jimmy Hoffa vanished and was never seen again. Due to Hoffa's fame, the mystery surrounding his disappearance garnered a lot of attention, from local cops to the FBI. And to this day, people are still wondering what happened to him. The night he disappeared, Hoffa called his wife from a phone booth and told her that a planned meeting with local mobsters didn't happen, that he'd been stood up. Nobody has seen or heard from Hoffa since. The most prevailing theory of the lot, and there are many theories, is that the mob didn't want to risk Hoffa talking to anyone about what they were doing or planning to do with the Teamsters. Hoffa was one of their go-to guys, but after his prison sentence, they cozied up to Frank Fitzsimmons, the man who replaced him on the Teamsters. Problem, though, was that Hoffa might have had dirt on them, and that he might use this dirt to regain power in a discreet way within the Teamsters, since he was banned from participating in the union as part of his plea deal. It's a distinct possibility that Hoffa was perceived as a threat by the mob and was therefore murdered. Hoffa's body was never found. There was a rumor that his body had been buried in the former Meadowlands Stadium, home of the New York Giants, which actually was being constructed around the time of his death. However, during an episode of Mythbusters, the entire field and some of the seating sections were scanned and nothing was found. There's been no new evidence in recent years as to what happened to Jimmy Hoffa, and as the FBI and even Hoffa's own daughter have noted, anyone could have killed him. Anyone who could have killed him is likely dead, or at the very least, very old. So what happened to Jimmy Hoffa? The world will probably never know. Well, thanks for watching, guys. Can you believe some of these disappearances? Which one was the most mysterious? Do you have any information we didn't cover? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.